Okay, today we want to take a look at just reviewing some things that we haven't done for a while, equations and inequalities. Here is what the process that you need to follow, so just take a minute and write that down. When we are solving an equation, first thing you want to do is distribute. That will get rid of the parentheses. Then you always want to combine like terms on one side, if that applies. Then you want to use inverse operations to undo addition and subtraction first, followed by multiplication and division. So let's take a look at a couple examples. Number one, you can see we have parentheses, so we want to get rid of those parentheses by distributing. Negative 3 times 2x is negative 6x minus negative 3 times 6 is negative 18 equals 12. And then let's just simplify this left side. Negative 6 minus negative 18 is the same as negative 6 plus 18. Now that we have everything simplified, let's start undoing. Remember, we're trying to get the variable by itself. That's your goal when you're solving an equation. So we want to get rid of the addition and subtraction first by doing the inverse operation. Over here I have negative 6x equals negative 6, and then I divide by negative 6, and I get x equals 1. Let's look at example 2. Here you can see I need to combine my like terms first before I start solving. So remember how we do that. 4x and positive 2x, those are like terms. They can be combined to make 6x. And then I have a negative 9 plus a negative 1. So that gives me a negative 10. Now everything is simplified. We can go ahead and do our steps to undo. So let's add 10 first. Remember, you always want to get rid of this first. This should be the last thing that you get rid of. That gives me 6x equals 24. Divide both sides by 6, and you get x equals 4. Okay, let's look at one more with a fraction. This one is already simplified. We don't have to distribute, we don't have parentheses, we don't have any like terms that we need to combine, so we're just going to start right away with solving. Add 8 to both sides. And then this always gives people a little bit of trouble. Remember, this is 2/5 times x, so you can divide both sides by 2/5. And let's see, 5 divided by 2/5 is the same as multiplying by 5/2. So we would get 25 over 2, or 12.5. Okay, you're welcome to try the other 3 examples, but I think I'm just going to stick with 3 examples here to get you started on equations. Okay, let's look at some word problems. Remember, when you are asked to write an equation for a word problem, the single amount stands alone, and the amount that varies, remember, those are the words per, each, maybe every. Those are the numbers that go with the variable. And then the total goes after the equal sign. Sorry about that. Okay, we used this template when we did these. Remember, we had the each or the per, the single value, and then the total value here. So let's look at an example. A taxi cab charges a flat fee of $2. That's like a single fee. Plus 25 cents for every mile driven. So that's like saying 25 cents per mile. So that's going to be the number that goes with the variable. And if the fare comes to $7.75, that's our total, what equation could be used to determine how many miles the taxi drove? So remember, these two added together will give you the total. So 0.25x plus $2 equals $7.75. Okay, they don't ask you to solve it, but let's just quickly, we could solve that pretty quickly. I think that comes out to 23. Yep, comes out to 23, and that would be miles. Remember, with word problems, let's remember to label. Okay, let's flip the worksheet over. All right, there's a couple more. Pete's Painting charges $25 per room to paint. So that's our key, that's going to be the number with the variable, plus an additional 50 cents per square foot to paint. Oops, I think I messed that one up. Let's look at that one again. I think they tricked us here by putting 2 pers. We know the total is 201, but we have to decide which number is going to go with the variable. It says $25 per room to paint plus an additional 50 cents per square foot that they paint. If they charge me $201 to paint my kitchen, so it looks like they're only painting one room, so the 25 is going to be the single value, and the 50 cents per square foot would be the one that gets repeated. So 0.5x plus 25 equals 201. Right, I'm going to skip number 3. You could try it if you want to, but let's review inequalities. Okay, remember these are inequalities. We're talking about less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. When you solve an inequality, you solve it just like an equation. Okay, and a lot of times what we do is we graph the answer. So let's review what those graphs look like. X is less than 2 would be an open circle, and we would shade all the numbers less than 2. X less than or equal to 2 would be a closed circle at 2, and I would shade less than. X greater than 2 would go to the right. Okay, and then the last one, x greater than or equal to 2, would be a closed circle. So remember, anytime we have that equal sign underneath, we need to use a closed circle. If we don't, we use an open circle. That means 2 is not included in the solution. Okay, and there's one trick you have to remember when you're solving inequalities. If you divide or multiply both sides by a negative, you must flip or reverse the direction of the inequality sign. So let's look at this example. We're going to treat it just like an equation. I need to get rid of the parentheses. And then I'm ready to solve by doing the inverse operations. Divide by 3, and I get x less than 1. Okay, so you can see here I divided by a positive, so I don't need to reverse the sign. So you just want to make sure that you keep that inequality sign there. We could graph that. X is less than 1 would be all numbers to the left of 1. Okay, the next one, it's already simplified. We don't have any like terms or parentheses to get rid of. So let's just start solving. I would add 8 first. That gives me negative 2x less than or equal to 14, and then divide by negative 2. So remember, when you're working with inequalities, if you're dividing by a negative, we have to reverse the direction of the sign. So that's going to become a greater than or equal. So on this side, I'm left with x. 14 divided by 2 is negative 7. So let's put a negative 7. X is greater than or equal to negative 7. Would look like that. Okay, one last one. Remember, if the variable is on the right side, it might be a good idea to, let's rewrite this. Remember, if you rewrite it, we need to reverse the sign because 4 is bigger than all of this. So that means 1/2 x minus 2 is less than 4. Then we can go ahead and solve. Get x is less than 12. So open circle, x is less than 12 for that one. Okay. If you can also solve that one the way it's written. You could do it the way it's written. Divide both sides by 1/2. You get x on that side and 12 on this side. But remember, 12 greater than x is the same as x less than 12. So just be careful with the ones that have the variable on the right side.